Hi, I'm Aaron Rice with Integer Security, and here's some quick tips for using good password habits. So, first off, passwords suck, but we all have to have them, and that's okay because there are ways to make good passwords that you can remember that people aren't going to figure out that will keep you safe. So, how do we do that? So, first off, don't reuse passwords. I know you really want to you're making an account, you just want to type in the thing that you know, you've got this password memorized, you don't want to have to remember a million passwords, so you reuse it, but don't. The reason you don't is because as soon as that password is compromised in one place, then it's now compromised for everything, right? So now they've got your password for your bank and your email and your computer and everything else just because one thing got broken into that you had no control over. But you don't want to remember all these passwords, so what do? Well, you use a password manager whenever possible. Password managers like LastPass and KeePass have password generators that can create long randomized passwords for you to use that you can copy in, and then they save all of your passwords in a safe and secure way to make sure that no one else has access to them. So as long as you just remember your password to your password manager, then all of your passwords are safe and you've got good, strong passwords to use for all of your services. Well, you can't use a password manager for everything, right? So you have to log into your computer before you can get to your password manager. So what do you do for those? Well, to start, avoid basic patterns. Basic patterns like word, number, symbol get broken by computers very quickly because everyone uses word, number, symbol. And so when you've got word, number, symbol and your password gets broken, then again, you've got a problem. So what do you do instead of this? You move your numbers, your capital letter, your symbol, you put them in different locations rather than the capital letter at the beginning and the number and symbol at the end. You want to avoid that kind of stuff because that's the kind of thing that password cracking software is looking for. So instead, let's start with a passphrase. Instead of a word, use a phrase. What the phrase does is it adds a lot of length, but also makes it very memorable, and you can have this something be that is specific to you. It can be something that you would know, that you would remember, whatever else. But it's not something that anyone could really easily guess. And it's definitely hard for a computer to figure out because of the length. Now, once you've got that passphrase, you need to do one more thing to it, which is add complexity. You want to add the number and the symbol and the capital letter, and you want to avoid those basic patterns, put them in different locations, but put them somewhere where it makes sense so that it's not difficult to type. You're not just adding a scramble of letters into the middle of it. Just make it make sense and make it easy to type. So that is the goal here. There's this comic from XKCD from a long time ago that kind of goes into the math of this a little bit. And it talks about these common mistakes that people make. And you see up at the top here, they've got this troubadour and 3. And it's using all the substitution. It has the letter and this, or the number and the symbol at the end. And this is actually a bad password. That's going to get broken by software. Even though you think it's a strong password, and while you're right that no human is going to sit there and guess it, but humans aren't really guessing passwords anymore. That's not the way it works. They're using programs. And the programs see this just like the word and a regular, again, like we were talking before, a basic pattern. You want to avoid that. Instead, something that is technically better is 4 random words. Correct horse battery staple is mathematically a better password than troubadour and 3 with that letter substitution in there. Now, this doesn't go all the way there, right? We were talking about adding that complexity once you have a phrase or a group of words to make it memorable. However, this is kind of on the right track and talks about why the math makes sense. So what we did is we took a number of passwords and we ran it through this kind of cracking software to see where it went. We wanted to see what actually held up. We're talking about a lot of different things here. So what actually works and what actually doesn't. So that's what we were testing here. So why don't you go ahead, if you'd like, pause the video, take a look at these, and guess which ones you think were cracked and which ones you think weren't. All right, here we go. So user 1 password, obviously that got cracked. It's just the word password. It's a regular word and it's going to get cracked. You could replace the word password with any single word that you want and it's going to get cracked. It could be software and it would get broken. It could be headset and it would get broken. I'm looking for things around my house to guess as passwords, but any like regular word's not going to work. User 2, password again. This is that letter substitution we were talking about. It's got a capital letter and it's got the 5s instead of the S and the 0 in there, but it got cracked. And that's because the software sees this almost exactly the same as the word password. It's going to get broken every time because what the software does, it starts with that word and it finds all those little things that people like to change. The third one, that pattern, winter 2020 #. So it's that pattern word number symbol and it got cracked. But you see user 4, we kind of rearranged it a little bit. We moved the capital letter into the middle, and we moved the letters and the numbers in so that they weren't in the same order, and it got through. It didn't get cracked. Now, this won't last forever. It's, this is perfectly fine for now, but there's a better way. User 5, we went totally random. Of course, it didn't get cracked, but who's going to remember that, right? And even if you do, you're not going to remember 3, 4, 5 of these and be able to type them easily. It's going to be a huge pain to do it, but hey, it didn't get cracked, right? User 6, pizza, 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 pizza. We went to the other extreme. We went very long, but almost no complexity. It's actually 4 letters in a repeating pattern, and it got cracked. And this kind of drives home that just because it's long doesn't necessarily mean it's good, but it does add it does add a lot. It's just you got to have some kind of complexity in there. And so user 7, we kind of went the XKCD approach. It is all still lowercase, but it's 4 different words: killer, bike, watched, logician, and it got through. So again, this is good for now, but because of requirements and also because the complexity just adds so much more difficulty for the software to crack it, we get to user 8. Someone please use this tip. And this is kind of our ideal password. It's got the 1 that's kind of replaced, but it's somewhere that it makes sense, and it's got the comma in the middle, and we've got the capital down a tip at the end there. It's all mixed up. It avoids the patterns. It's long. It's super easy to type and remember. And this is our ideal password. This is what we want to see. So whenever possible, use a passphrase with complexity. So to recap, don't reuse your passwords. Use a password manager whenever available to avoid remembering stuff and using strong passwords by default. Avoid basic patterns. Start with a passphrase and then add complexity. And then, of course, last of all, have a good day. Thank you.